Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another episode of the Digital Adoption Show Season 2. I'm Tamana from WhatFix. I hope you are having a gala time listening to all of these episodes because we definitely are enjoying making one for you. So, Season 2 episode features Gokul Suresh, who's the head of growth at WhatFix, and he's having a conversation about how right balance of technology for organizational learning strategy is important with Simon Gibson, who's the future skills and career lead at the Direct Line Group. It's a really fun conversation, and with a lot of fun and examples. I definitely suggest you shouldn't miss this out.
Hey all, welcome to the Digital Adoption Show. I'm your host Gokul Suresh, head of growth at WhatFix, and in this episode, I'm hosting the wonderful Simon Gibson. Simon is a man of many talents. He has been in the learning, HR, training, and organizational development ecosystem for more than 15 years and has been part of organizations like NatWest, NBC Universal Media, Fujitsu Global, and currently working with the UK-based insurance company Direct Line Group. And throughout his career, Simon has been helping companies create and implement learning and training solutions, digitally transform the technology, adopting cloud from legacy systems, and much more. Right. So in this episode, we'll be talking to Simon specifically on how to bring about digital transformation in learning and employee training. I mean, trying to create that buzz in learning and employee training. Right. So, yeah, welcome to the Digital Adoption Show, Simon.
Great, Gokul. Thanks for having me. I don't think I've been called wonderful before, but let's see where we get to. Yeah, very pleased to be here. Keen to share some insights and some views, like you say, and have a nice open discussion around all things learning and organizational development.
Awesome, man. Simon, actually, that had a very good ring to it. The wonderful Simon Gibson seemed like, a magician type, right?
I know. I should maybe pop that on my LinkedIn profile. See how that goes. Yeah.
Awesome, right? And so, Simon, so for the audience, right, if you could fill in the gaps to your intro. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty more from that which I just told. So, pretty much, if you could spare some more words.
Yeah, sure. So, I suppose over the last few years, I've had a real focus on technology and its impact on the workplace, but more importantly. I say more importantly, but I suppose we can discuss some of this as we go through. What does that mean for people, and what does that mean for the business that can ultimately achieve its relevant goals and outcomes? That happens to be in a learning guise. Yeah, I'm currently at a UK insurer called Direct Line Group. We're a very big insurer in our country, but I've worked in other countries. I've worked in the US. I've worked across Europe. And parts of Asia, always doing similar sort of things in and around that learning and talent space. Again, and I'm very open to separate discussions for anybody that's listening on, what are the challenges they're facing and what are some of the things that I've done that might help that. All the way back in my career to, I've worked frontline, and I've worked in retail and I've worked in banking and finance and personal finance and IT hardware for a weird and wonderful career that hopefully we'll be able to talk a little bit about, but bring to life for some of the audience as well.
Awesome. So, Simon, you mentioned banking, finance, media, tech, right? How did the mix come into play? I mean, that's so many different industries, so many tracks that you've jumped into, right? I mean, so two questions. One, what is the motivation behind jumping tracks to so many industries? And the second one, what are some takeaways for the audience from this really broad experience?
Yeah, thanks. So I've never worked in the same industry twice is kind of my tagline, right? So I think it says more about me and maybe a bit about my profession, where I think we should be around, and I'll answer the questions at the same time, about curiosity. So, what did I know about IT hardware when I joined IT hardware? Well, I had a computer, but I learned a lot. What did I know about finance, corporate finance, banking, learning, brokering? Nothing, but I can tell you a lot about how that business now makes money. What did I learn? What did I know about solar energy? What did I know about IT? I can pick any industry that I've worked in, right? It's a real thirst for knowledge, how things work. I don't mean to sound really capitalist and, it's all about money, but how does it make money, right? That I'm just really intrigued because are there similarities between Fujitsu a behemoth of an IT company that you guys will know and have come across, and Direct Line Group, who just started to sell insurance. Actually, there are similarities, right, in some of the challenges and what their people need to do and how that works. Fast forward to today and hopefully a more successful post-pandemic move for everyone, that's going to alter how we work and what we do as work, right? So I'm always intrigued, basically. Always intrigued is what I'm saying.
Awesome. And, in fact, so there was this book which I read, Bell Curve. So there was this very interesting concept over there that when you move from organization to organization, there is process, skills, and everything that you carry ahead, right? I mean, that's something that you go deeper into, you build it up, and you take it from each organization, you take something new and you go to the next one. Whereas, there's product, there's market, which keeps on changing. Now, that is what you need to actually get a hold of every time you move. Right. I'm assuming that's what, over the years, you have accumulated that process and skills to a lot more level. It's just about understanding the market and the product and, then going fully on with it.
Yeah,
right.
How does it work? I love it, right? And again, like I say, people brighter than me can write books and articles and papers on it. But how does the thing make money? Mm-hmm. How can you understand its pain points? You'll know this from your own organization, right? What are the issues you're trying to address? And can you bring something to the party that will help address that issue? And actually, is it, and again, we'll talk about this later, is it really the big issue, or is it just something nice that you like to do? Well, if it's the big issue and you can bring something that helps, whisper it quietly. It doesn't matter what industry it is, does it? Right? That's a win for all, whether it's nuclear decommissioning or a big American film and TV industry, right? Find the pain points around its people, around technology, around change and transformation, and see if you can do something meaningful about them.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. So Simon, I think so. We spoke about verticals. Now let's think horizontal, right? You've been into L&D, and for the audience, right? Simon has been a head of learning, talent development director, head of organizational development, head of people excellence. So many different org development roles that you've been into. In a horizontal structure, if you look at, right? So how does that come into the mix? And again, there's so much of learning in that career. So I'm asking particularly for the audience who are looking up to, growing their career in L&D and HR. What's that core that you would define as a professional, and what kind of takeaways that you can give for the audience? How do they grow?
Yeah, I love it. Right. Great question. And for the audience, and you can see, if you contact me or if you look at my profile, I started at the bottom, right? So I was way, way, way down at the bottom over 15 years ago, showing my age a little bit on a secondment, and a talent move came up. And the joke I gave to Gokul before is I didn't know what a secondment meant, and I didn't know what a talent move was, right? So that gives you a bit of an insight into my world, into learning and talent and HR. Like many folks, did I set out to come and play in this world? No, I didn't. But what I did, and again, hopefully it comes across in my career and what I'm talking about, is I just had a thirst to understand what might be able to help. And so the first job I got as a training manager way back when was because I was pretty good at the job I did. Okay, we know this is the story as old as time. You're pretty good at what you do. Do you want to go and manage some people at what you do? Or can you teach some people about what you do, right? And they gave me the opportunity to look at some of our training solutions, interventions. And I suppose what I'm sharing is, because I'd done the job and I was really passionate about the job, actually I was pretty well placed to talk about what might help and what might not help. Was I a training or learning expert or development? No, I wasn't. But I did my best to start my learning journey, right? And followed that energy and opportunity into this world, which then I suppose my advice to the audience is, get outside your comfort zone, go and talk to different companies, build your network. We're talking because 15 years later, I still build my network, right? We're a living example. Go and see what you can learn from other industries, countries, verticals, people and team. Challenge your thinking and, don't be afraid to voice an opinion now and again, which is I'm trying to do on this podcast, right? So,
yeah. Awesome, Simon. I think I'm going to just step that part and put it on LinkedIn. That's just pure gold.
Sounds a plan,
Awesome.
right? Sounds a plan.
Yeah. All right. So I have a different direction to the entire conversation as well. You mentioned 15 years, right? 15 years of career, 15 plus years rather, right? So that means you have seen multiple black swan events, right? I mean, starting from, let's say, approximately 2008 economic crash, then Brexit, now the pandemic, right? So while the pandemic definitely seems to have accelerated the adoption of L&D and the new technology around it, now, there's something that you have learned and adapted from each of those situations. So how do you think it's different from what we have adapted in 2022? I mean, how has it progressed over the years?
Yeah, great. Again, we could probably have a separate conversation just about this, but I suppose I put a little post on LinkedIn earlier, actually, funny enough, that there isn't a playbook, right? There is no Ulrich example. There is no McKinsey can tell you. There is no consultancy that can say, when we last came out of a pandemic, this is what we did, because it didn't exist, right? It's never happened in this way before. However, and again, you'll know, have we learned the lessons of the past with Brexit for those that in Europe and the United Kingdom and freedom of movement and the talent we need and how to attract them? No, not really. Did we really learn from the financial crash? No, we've got evidence today that says we're still underskilled, partly why we're talking. We don't have strong enough digital literacy. We definitely don't have strong enough data literacy. We knew this 15 plus years ago, right? This isn't new news. And then, we're talking today on a technology that whilst, it probably skyrocketed through the pandemic, virtual technology has been around for 20 plus years, right? It's not new. It sounds like I'm being critical. I'm not. I'm just like, we just thought works Monday to Friday, 9 till whatever time you finish, or whatever time you start till whatever time you finished, and it was quite fixed. We had very industrial age thinking, and all of a sudden, because of the pandemic, because of the acceleration, I think a lot of pennies have dropped, if that translates. People are thinking in a different way that have suddenly gone, actually we could do this differently, but we just don't know how. Back to my point, there isn't a magical example to look at, to talk at, or to lean into. You've got to try some stuff. And that's my crude way of saying, well, what's right for your organization might not be right for another organization, right? But I suppose what I've learned and I'm learning is there is massive opportunity to do things differently. Massive opportunity to help organizations, to help businesses transform quicker, faster, better. Lots of variables to make that happen, but there is huge opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what, if you look at one other aspect, I mean, I keep talking about digital transformation. And I mean, to me, digital transformation is just adopting any new technology. I mean, back when we had the brick small Nokia phones to the iPhone now, it's digital transformation, right? And that's not almost the same age, right? I mean, 15 years or 20 years, right? So it's a lot of adopting different aspects to it and, figuring out what works now.
Well, I'm sorry, I've got passion, right? So now I'm going to follow it, because you go, well, hold on, the iPhone's I don't think the iPhone's 15 years old, right? Maybe it is approximately. But the pace of technological change, if you were mapping it on an X and Y, as we know, technological change has gone vertical. It's got change within organizations, especially those of significant size or listed on any relevant stock exchange, not as fast, right? Definitely not as fast. Change outside to us and our personal lives, it's a million miles an hour. And then, so what happens is you've got this weird paradigm that you go into work and you lose all the superpowers that you have outside of work, because outside of work, you can get fresh food made, ordered, delivered to you. You can book a holiday, you can do travel, you can do your banking. You don't have to go to a bank. You can scan objects, you can do things. You go into work, and all those things are taken away because it's a server in the basement and only certain people can work on the server. Do you see what I mean? It like time gets unwound. It's like time travel. That creates the opportunity, is my point. that's the missed opportunity. And we still think we can make work in the way that it did yesterday rather than the way it does tomorrow, in inverted commas tomorrow, if anybody could see me on this podcast. But
yeah, I totally agree there. In fact, everybody has seen that comic, right? COVID-19 accelerated digital transformation. What's your take on that, Simon? What do you think?
Well, yeah. I don't think. Well, did it really? I'm not an economist, right? But did it accelerate transformation for some? Well, it forced them, didn't it? It forced the world online, and it forced us to adopt technologies, to your point, that maybe we didn't want to before. And we've proved, we've had the world's biggest use case that predominantly work can be done in many cases than we knew before, anytime, kind of any place, almost in any environment. I get it if you're on a factory line. I get it if you're providing a service. You can't do that from your home and your garden unless it's a service you can provide to somebody in their home or garden. But if you're making something, you've got to go to the factory and make the thing. But predominantly around that, with the traditional work and office work and remote work and what we thought before, it's just shone a very bright light on some things, my point, we've ignored. A function, HR, learning, or talent, whatever you want to call us, has ignored for so long. And all of a sudden we've gone, actually, this could work, couldn't it? Oh, and it could be for benefit, because people can have more choice. People can have more flexibility. We can find different people. We can work in different ways. It's not confined to a traditional structured time bound when or where we must work. Allowing for cultural difference. I get it's not the same across the globe. I understand this. I've experienced it firsthand. But it is a massive opportunity. Do I wish we had COVID? Of course I didn't. I don't. It's very sad, and it's affected many people in different ways. But from a work perspective, I think we'd still be in a very similar situation had it not happened.
Yeah, true that. Think of this, that there are a lot of companies which has remote workforce, right? And the technology for that already existed, and there was already a lot of remote working happening, right? In your case also, Simon, I think you must have rolled out some maybe L&D methodology, or maybe, let's say, a training regime or something like that for the entire remote workforce, right? How was that different earlier, and how is it different now?
Yeah, brilliant, right? So that the $1 million question, was it really different? I'd argue it wasn't really different, right? It's just that we didn't have the laser-like spotlight provided by the pandemic on what remote working means. And interestingly, and I talk to a lot of people across the globe, and predominantly a lot of those in Europe, some in America. It's really interesting to hear how companies and organizations are tagging remote / hybrid working / smarter working, flexible. There'll be lots of different terms that people use, because the skills and capabilities for us to talk now and interact in a way, and to chat over a camera, and to use this as a recording, and to put it out on social media in different environments. Yes, a skill set. I didn't need a pandemic to upskill me on it. Like I said, I've worked with teams and different countries and different languages for a long time. Yeah, I might be quite unique in some of my experiences, but those things were still required. We are a global workforce. Why wouldn't you want to go and understand where you could get great skills, whether that's within your country or not? Caveat, not every company can do that. But that was the opportunity, right? So I could rant, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, and I totally get it, right? Anyway, I have another angle to this as well. So through this podcast, it's called the Digital Adoption Show. So basically, we are trying to evangelize the concept of digital adoption and literacy, right? And you must have seen how employees of an organization struggle with, let's say, enterprise applications generally. They are sophisticated in nature. It has a lot of capabilities, a lot of features, but yeah, people struggle because they don't know how to utilize it, right? So in the current scenario, L&D folks needs to look at the best way to deliver a learning, right? And as you rightly mentioned, remotely, if you have to worry about the pace of the learner, interest of the learner, and so many different aspects, right? Before and after, even now, that exists, right? So how do you bridge those skill gaps, right? And you must have tried a lot of different ways on that, right? Can you cite some examples that you've tried and how it actually happened?
Yeah. So I'll give some broad views and then an example or two we can talk about and share. A really great point, which is obviously allowing for cultural variance, right? I'm not going to overemphasize the point that obviously not everybody speaks the same language, and not everybody can run at the same speed when learning. If you apply the system lens and the adoption lens that you just talked about there, and I like the term literacy, so let's play with that for a minute. Digital literacy. Well, interestingly, just using the pandemic as an example, look at how many countries, many countries, if not globally, had to change their approach to digital literacy, to their approach to how they interact with these tools, how they can get shopping online, how they can bank online, how they can, this is just from a personal perspective, right? Just from a personal perspective, which then bled into work, right? And I don't know if you experienced this at your organization, but how challenging it was for many to kind of go, well, hold on, I've got to meet Gokul online. We've never met online before. I've not used Zoom before or Teams. There are other platforms. I don't get paid to endorse any of them, right? And what did we do to upskill, reskill those people now, that you can evangelize about Microsoft saying, well, we basically gave Teams away free and we try to make it as easy as possible. But where I'm getting to is think about the user experience, right? We're all users. And the best one I can talk about and share for everyone is the iPhone. I would love to meet somebody who's read the instructions about how to use an iPhone. They do exist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But where do they put all their energy and effort? In the user experience, right? You slide it out of the box, you peel off the sticker, you pop it open, you power it on. It's got energy in it already. It's partly charged, right? Think about the details that they've put into how easy it is to turn on their product, how easy it is to start using it. Then overlay that with what you do in an organization or a business for a process, and you go, oh, we could have 59 steps to make this really complicated. So why don't we have 720 steps, right? Why don't we make it really hard for the end user? Do you see what I mean? We don't start with the end in mind. Even if you make products, even if your company's making products, but you've got people using systems and technology, we get really stuck in that kind of place. And so to bring that to life, yes, some work I've done at Fujitsu, some work I've done at RS Components, some work I'm looking at now, around that digital literacy, what are the basic key skills that you would want people to have more of, that you would want people to utilize? And I'm really going to emphasize this point, irrespective of their role. So when we talk about collaboration, everybody, and I mean everybody, should be able to use these types of tools to collaborate, to have conversations, to have team meetings, to capture ideas, to share documents, to work on things at the same time. We're talking in 2 different time zones, in 2 different countries. Many people don't experience that. Actually, many people don't have the skills to even do that, right? So I suppose what I'm counselling in a generalistic term is don't underestimate how low the bar might be, and don't overestimate how far you can get. And I'm being quite candid about my experiences, and I talk about this a lot. I might be talking about building a space rocket to get to the moon, and actually all my organisation needed to do was get across the road, right? So whilst I might have a big grand ambition and lots of opportunity, and technology can present lots of big opportunities, actually if all I needed to do was get them across the road, think about how quick and short and smart you could make that with a brilliant user experience, right, to help them get across the road, rather than designing a rocket that will only get to the moon, but nobody wanted to get to the moon. It sounds random, I know, but I'm trying to give a global example, right, of
Yep, I got
Simon's
it.
crazy mind and thinking, and what that means. Even in smaller organisations, I go back to smaller organisations when I've worked in small startups or private equity backed environments. The challenges being the same. How do you get your baseline on where people are at? How do you really ratify where you think or understand or capture where you want to get them to? Is everybody at a 1 and you only need to get them to a 2? Great, right? Or are you just not really utilising the data and the information and the insight available, and you're just making a guess because you do learning and people like doing learning? I'm trying to bring to life the opportunities to how to challenge some of that thinking, but a long-winded way of answering that question, Gokul.
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole idea of instead of crossing the road, go to the moon. Really, I mean, that's something. It's a thought, right? Because when you look at it, a lot of people just do what's told to them, right? I mean, there's a lot of innovation that can come into picture, and nowadays, let's say even in L&D particularly, blended aspects that works out really well. I mean, how do you mix and match different modes of training and learning? Right? Can we have a micro learning aspect to it? Can we have, let's say, a VR aspect to it? Right? Can we have an interactive guidance towards it? Right? So there's a lot of mix and match that comes into play, right? It's about the creativity that you ultimately have.
Yeah, and finding the right blend, because I don't know, I'll use a silly example again, right? Would I want a brain surgeon, using VR to have his first go at working on someone's brain? Well, yeah, that's quite safe. Can't really harm anybody in a virtual reality environment. Do I want him to practice for live on me or her for the first time? No, I don't. No. But somehow you have to get the experiences, don't you, to your point? So what am I trying to emphasize? As rich as you can make those experiences, as meaningful as and impactful as you can make them. I'm not a psychologist, but I'd understand if it's memorable, I'm more likely to remember and recall that information than, I did a module, it lasted 30 minutes. I might not need that content for 7 months' time. Well, actually, then your 30-minute module is a bit useless, isn't it? But if in 7 months' time, you've got the artificial intelligence and the ability to nudge Simon and know he might need this thing at this moment in time, well, that's a bit different, isn't it? That's a bit in the flow, like we talk about, and the right mix. And actually, I know Simon prefers to pause, maybe have a read and then carry on. So we've sent him this thing at that appropriate time. So, yeah, just finding the right blend, finding the right mix of materials, be that knowledge, be that insight, be that new learning, to your point. How thirsty are your organisation to remain curious and continually to look at new ways to learn or new opportunities to learn that correlate directly with what your business is doing? I'm not saying go learn something that's completely different to what your company or your role is, right? Because that might not be appropriate use of your time, but blending it in the right mix and in the right mode at the right moment. Yeah, that's the magical solution that everybody's trying to aim for.
Yeah, I mean, and Simon, I wanted to ask this particularly. Let's say everybody loves something which is ready-made, right? Something of a recipe that they can apply to their organization right away, something actionable, right? So you mentioned about all the different mixes. Now, are there any mixes that has worked really for you, which you think can fit in for any organization? Something where, okay, fine, these combinations work really well. Let's try this out. Something like that.
Yeah,
Any recipe?
Yeah, I love it. I think so, right? And I think so. And I would caveat with that, if I'm wrong, challenge me, right? Talk to me, reach out to me. But I don't underestimate the simplicity of something, very clean and simple, like I said about user experience, that explains or showcases what you're asking your employee or user to do. The cliched guide, the one-page simplistic guide with I suppose, in a world of TikTok and YouTube, that, that kind of, there's probably a premium on time, and I'm showing my age, but, kind of 60 seconds, 2 minutes of it's this. I think my experience says it always lands really well, right? It always lands really well. And if you've got the relevant ability to capture data, MI that says, do you know what? We sent that out and 7,000 people watched the whole 60 seconds. and we've had no downtime and there's no issues with that system. It seems to have worked. Definitely that. I don't think you can get away from, I'm not saying classroom training's dead, but you can't get away from just hanging out with the right group and talking about shared experiences, right? And shared problems and shared challenges that, again, because of the experience, my experience is people go away with some learnings and go away with some more information than they started that session with, caveated with it has to be part of your organizational mix, right? And does that work? And can you take people off the phone or out of the office and into that environment? Or have you changed your office, back to our point about, as a result of the pandemic, to think about how you can collaborate better and connect better in person when allowed and when appropriate than you did before. I'm just a real big fan of brilliant user experience, right? And I'm not saying everybody's got to make a blockbuster type movie to explain things and do things and showcase things, but anything you can do to make that as rich as possible for your end user, I would say has always had the biggest impact for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time to move away from those smaller user manuals ultimately, right? I don't know why people still have it. I mean, honestly, I haven't read it.
It's like my iPhone example. You know, iPhone doesn't send us a 20-page book, do they? Right? They say, here's top tips. And after a few months, your phone will nudge you and say, oh, do you want to learn a couple of things? It'll take you 2 minutes. You know, here's 5 things. You go, that's pretty cool. I mean, the amount of, I still do it today, showing my age, right? I still do it now and learn things I didn't know before. Or I find things on social media where I'm kind of, I didn't know that shortcut, right? You know, and how long have I had the phone? Well, I've had the phone 12 years, right? Not the same phone, but...
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, challenge the complacency, right? Ultimately.
Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So, Simon, I think we've come to almost to the end of the show, right? And I have a rapid fire here, right? So I have a few questions. I'll just, whatever comes, the first thing that comes on your mind, just go ahead with that, right?
Cool.
Awesome. All right. So what's your learning philosophy, right? So if you haven't thought about it, what do you think it would be?
Cool, I love this. So my philosophy would be, don't be afraid to ask questions. Just get curious. Remain curious, find out how things work, and it will answer many more questions than you realize.
Okay, awesome. And okay, now think of it in this way. Now, let's say you are a CEO of an organization that controls learning for everybody, right? What would the first thing that you would like to try?
Oh, wow. So a big, wow. I think everybody'd have to retrain to become some sort of data engineer, data analyst, right? Scrap learning another language and anything like that. You should be learning coding languages. I think I would be hopefully quite progressive in helping everybody of my company, in inverted commas, CEO of my company, understand the power and impact of technology and what that might mean on people and people's roles, but how we can do that in a meaningful and valuable way for all that helps them remain employable or relevant for many, many years to come, rather than a declining skill set. We're told these stories everywhere, right? Aren't we? You know, the robots are coming, automation, augmentation. So hopefully I would be the CEO that bridges that gap and really changes people's opportunities as a result.
Yeah, and great power, great responsibility, right? So
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Right now, as a thought leader in the space, I'm sure there are many you look up to as well. Who are those? Yeah, if you could name them.
Yeah, that's great. Who do I look up to? That's really interesting. Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not really sure, really. It's more, I just, I follow lots of different industries. I look outside my industry. I look at, it's a bit cliched. I don't even like the term, right? And I'll give you a bit of a rant on it. But, when people say what we need to do is ask the business, and I go, but I am the business. We all get paid by the same people. So, I'm business first. And I suppose I do that by very weird and wonderful ways. I'm a big fan of the World Economic Forum and lots of their research. I follow lots of different professors. I follow lots of thought leaders, innovation, disruptors. I don't know if they're called thought leaders. It's just people I've found, right, throughout throughout my weird and wonderful career that I kind of go, well, they share some interesting stuff. And it goes back to my counsel at the start, rather than, give out a long list of names for people to follow, which is maybe look outside your comfort zone, look outside of your current industry and your current vertical. If you're in HR, go find some good people in finance who talk some sense. Go find some people in marketing who really know how to market products. Follow some technological angles, read some varied articles, podcasts. Obviously, listen to these brilliant podcasts, and other material that will maybe lead you somewhere else, because that's what it's done for me. The power of LinkedIn, Twitter, social media has taken me to many weird and wonderful people. I can't really say it's these 5 people, because it's not, and I'd be doing a disservice to everyone else that I do read and follow. There are people in my profession, I read and watch and follow exactly what they do, and I have a lot of respect for them. But there's many weird and wonderful ways. Probably have a look at what I do and write and follow on LinkedIn might help some people as well.
I mean, just the way we started the podcast, right? Curiosity, right? Just be curious.
Simple, right? It's simple. It sounds simple. Simple. Find the time. Just be curious.
Yep. Awesome. All right. And what are some books you have read this year that, not this year, maybe last year even, right? So what are some books that you would really recommend folks to read?
Great. Yeah, love this. So big fan of, obviously, Dan Pink. Anything to do with Dan. You've put me on the spot now. And who would I say? I've read some things about, artificial intelligence. I couldn't tell you who's written them, right? And predictive analytics, that's a bit sad, isn't it? Apologies to the authors. I'm sure I could come back to that. Also a bit different. I have to say I'm a massive fan of Brené Brown, and anybody who's watched her TED Talks or Daring Greatly is one of my favourite reads, which I did reread through lockdown. It's probably one of the last ones I read. And then I'm reading loads of stuff. Again, it's like me, right? I'm reading true crime at the moment. It's nothing to do with what I do. It's nothing. It's just a complete release, right? To read something completely different. So, Yeah,
I'm just really curious. I mean, behind on the wall, there's a quote. Is that a quote or is that something else?
It is a quote, and it probably alludes to who I am. So it's in my office for or a little study that I've got as my office, and I look at it every day that I come into this room, and it says everything begins with an idea. Mm-hmm. And so it's definitely something that resonates with me, because I try and exercise, or in downtime, or in quiet moments, you have ideas, right? And back to my curiosity point and looking elsewhere, don't be afraid to follow those ideas. Some of my ideas are stupid, right, and crazy, and some of my ideas seem to have worked out all right. But everything begins with an idea, and it's stood me in good stead so far.
Yeah, I love that. That's the daily motivation, right? I mean, you get an idea, let's find something.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's try that. Might be wrong, but that's okay. Let's see what we learn, right?
Yep. Awesome. And so the last question, right? So, this is a digital adoption show. So when you think digital adoption, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Embracing it is great. Again, I love this, right? And we could keep talking. For me, digital adoption, what does that mean? Just embracing something that's going to help you do what you can do, but better, right? And I'm trying not to label what that might be, because obviously, there's lots of different variants of that. But we're in a world where it's not going to go away. It's going to get faster. We're in a world where the term digital adoption, digital uptake, digital literacy, like we've shared a few times here, it's just going to get louder and louder and louder. And I appreciate I'm in a minority where I can view and understand how important that can be for an organisation and a business. But to answer your question and to bring it back on a local level, digital adoption, what does it mean to me? Just embracing anything that can help, right? Mm-hmm. Anything that can help in a way that's either personal or organisationally or whatever facet you want to work with that. So, that's where I sit.
Awesome. Yeah, that's the bit from my side, Simon. And we've actually come to the end of yet another episode of Digital Adoption Show. So thanks, Simon. This has been amazing. I love the conversation.
Great. Thanks for your time. Like I said, if anybody wants to reach out, please find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm happy to carry on the conversation and or be challenged on any of my wonderful ideas or not so wonderful ideas I'd had during the chat. So yeah, thank you.
I'm sure people will reach out to you. I mean, this should be motivational enough for sure.
Appreciate it.
Awesome. So thanks everyone listening to this podcast, and stay tuned to the Digital Adoption Show for more great content and some really incredible speakers.